The next TF2 major update is set to be the largest of all time, and that's not just me choosing to ride the hype train. Here is TF2 developer Dave Riller talking to Valve News Network back in February this year.
It's probably one of the biggest updates we've done.
So, straight from the horse's mouth, this is likely to be the largest TF2 update of all time. What remains is two big, steamy, burning questions. What exactly is going to be in this update, and when is it going to be? The good news is we've got a lot of information directly from the developers about what they have been working on for nearly the last year since the Meet Your Match update from multiple sources, including the aforementioned Valve News Network interview, Gabe Newell and the team's AMA on Reddit, and Uncle Dane's visit to Valve, and even a little helping from the TF2 website official blog. On screen right now is a little list of everything that has been mentioned in the recent months, in order of what has been mentioned most frequently, and therefore is most likely to actually make it into the update. So let's break these points down into more detail again, based on what has been confirmed by Valve themselves. What we've heard time and time again is that the Pyro Pack is coming. Not only confirmed several times by the developers, but also by the fact that the Meet versus Match war, which is part of last summer's update. Pyro won the battle against Heavy, with the reward being an update in his or her name. So it's only double confirmation that this has continued to be mentioned by Valve whenever they've been asked about what they're working on. Dave Riller even expanded on this in the Valve News Network interview by explaining that we will be seeing new weapons for Pyro, balance tweaks for Pyro, and also balance changes for other classes in the game in general. In the official blog, Valve also referenced a community project called From Pyro with Love, which involved an open letter to Valve highlighting many of the community's concerns, major bugs, and ideas to improve Pyro. Now, Valve didn't explicitly say that they're going to take any of these changes and implement them exactly, but the fact that they acknowledge the existence of this open letter is at least something. The next major component confirmed to be coming is the jungle theme, including at least one map officially made by Valve. This news was originally brought to our attention back in November, being confirmed again in the Valve News Network interviews, and Uncle Dane even saw them playtesting this map when he visited the Valve offices. Along with the official map, Valve have asked the community to create tropical and jungle themed items. Conveniently, there is currently a very well held together community project called the Mayan Project, whose content is partially jungle themed, and we're very likely to see some of that in the forthcoming major update. On top of these two already quite substantial sounding categories, Dave Riller also mentioned again in the Valve News Network interviews that the upcoming update is known internally as Campaign 3, thus will involve a contract-based campaign. In reference to this campaign, he did explain that they're revamping the contract system somewhat to give the player more choice, and he used the expression "choose your own adventure" when it comes to picking contracts and rewards. Now, I personally never thought that there was anything wrong with the campaign formula, and given that we've only had two major campaigns before this, I don't think it's necessarily due an overhaul. Of course, it is said that one should never look a gift horse in the mouth, so if Valve believe that they can improve an already good system, then Godspeed. Of course, we all know what happened when Valve thought they could improve the quick play system, but now's not the time for pessimism. Also mentioned briefly when they were talking about the campaign, the Pyro Pack, and the jungle themes, Dave Riller referred to a new short film being worked on, similar to the Meet the Team videos. It's not clear whether this will be related to the Pyro, to the jungle theme, to the campaign, or will some way link all of them together, but it's cool nonetheless, and it only goes to highlight the scale and scope of this upcoming update. Improvements to both casual and competitive matchmaking have been talked about basically every time the developers have spoken in the last 6 months. Although not many details of exactly what these improvements will be have been shared, the developers have discussed things like allowing you to queue for a map whilst you're already in a map, which sounds awesome, and they've also talked about adding placement matches and a proper ELO rating system for competitive mode, which are two things it desperately needs. The developers have reiterated at almost every opportunity that they want to closer align the competitive and casual versions of Team Fortress 2. Whilst they do respect the rules and the format that the community refers to as competitive, the developers consider it too different from standard Team Fortress gameplay. In the past, they've worked on updates to treat the competitive community and the casual community as two completely separate entities, with two completely separate update routes. But they want to break this mold. One of the objectives with the upcoming major update, and probably many future updates to come, is to closer align the competitive and casual TF2 formula, so that both communities can be happy and both recognisably play the same game. It is definitely a tall task, and I don't envy some of the tough decisions that they're going to have to make to achieve this. However, I do personally agree that this is absolutely required. If we ever want to see a Valve-sponsored competitive TF2 major, then it simply has to be played on a version of TF2 which Valve themselves have come up with. Now, the very last thing I want to mention before we talk about when is something that I've seen them say only once, hence why it's low down on this list of things which is likely to happen. And this is that they claim they will make a blog post sometime before the update to collect community feedback about proposed changes, and then they're going to potentially alter those changes before the update ultimately drops. This is something, again, I personally think is desperately needed. The TF2 team is around 15 people, so we're told, and only about 4 or 5 of them are actually developers. Now, given that the TF2 player base is in the hundreds of thousands of people, it's going to be near impossible for those 4 or 5 developers to make perfect judgments on how to balance this game. So, collecting the thoughts and feelings and perspectives of the wider community is surely going to be beneficial. So, if this is a clearly sensible approach, why am I skeptical that this will actually happen? Well, let's talk about the when for when this update is going to drop. Unlike all the content that we've talked about thus far in the video, Valve have not disclosed any real information about when this content is going to be added to the game, but we can look at previous patterns and make some sort of educated guesses. The last 2 major updates in TF2 were the Christmas and Halloween 2016, both of which added almost nothing other than community cosmetics. Halloween did have a themed campaign, however this was almost an exact copy of the previous year's campaign, and the TF2 blog even said, all the way back in October, that they are putting the main focus at that time on the Pyro Pack, competitive improvements, and the new campaign. And of course, before those last 2 major updates was the Meet Your Match update. Given that Meet Your Match dropped in July, let's assume that they spent a month or 2 fixing some of the major issues from that, which leaves us with August or September 2016 until now, May 2017, that this update has been their main focus. The longest time ever between TF2 major updates was 203 days between the tough break in winter 2015 and the infamous Meet Your Match update in July 2016. Right now, it's been a little over 300 days since Meet Your Match. That is, of course, ignoring the Halloween and Christmas updates. Essentially, we're looking at the biggest gap ever between content updates that actually add new content and gameplay features, other than just community cosmetics. So this obviously backs up Dave Riller's view that this is possibly going to be the biggest update ever. If we're already at roughly 300 days since the last update, does that mean the new one is imminent? Unfortunately, there's no hard answer on that. If we look at previous major updates, it's difficult to say for sure that any particular spring or summer month is more likely to have updates than others. Do we often get a major update in July or August? Yes. But there's also been plenty in May or June. Hell, in 2011 there was even one in April, May and June. Having looked through the most recent years, June or July do seem to be slightly more likely. However, Valve have frequently stated in the past that they release content when it's ready. Given that this is a jungle tropical update, you could argue that it's summer themed, but I would personally say that's quite a tenuous link, and therefore no more likely to drop in summer than it is in spring. Another nail in the "this update isn't imminent" coffin is the aforementioned blog post that the devs said that they would make to gather community feedback. We're here in May, and this hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure what scale of feedback they were hoping to collect and therefore act on these changes, but if the update is hoping to land in May or June, then you'd like to think that they would have taken that feedback on already. Either that, or the feedback collection idea has been abandoned, and they're just going to release the update straight to the community. And one tiny little other thing is that no jungle content has been accepted on the Steam Workshop for Team Fortress 2. Now, it's my understanding that any item that is going to be officially collected and added to the game is accepted on the Steam Workshop. And as you can see, in date order here, The most recent things are some medals, and before that is Christmas items. It's very possible that the Team Fortress developers have decided which items they want, and they've already tried to do their bits and pieces with them on the back end, but as far as we're looking public facing, nothing has been accepted yet. So to summarize the when, we're looking at somewhere between 200 and 300 days of development almost entirely on this single update. Given that the previous largest time between major updates is around 200 days, this certainly suggests that the update may be nearing completion. Although Valve has stated that this is possibly the largest update ever. Based on previous updates across the years, this update is most likely in June or July, but in reality, it's gonna come whenever Valve is ready. So I don't want to stoke the hype engines too much, guys. We know that tends to lead to derailment in this community. But there's a lot coming. I think there's a lot to look forward to. I truly, honestly believe in my heart that they looked at Meet Your Match and they weren't happy with it. In fact, when Uncle Dane spoke to them, one of the lead developers even said to him that they felt they released Meet Your Match when it wasn't ready. So I'm really expecting this to be something really impressive, and I'm really hoping that it's coming sooner rather than later. So thanks everyone for watching. Here's some of my other content, and I will see you all very soon.